Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down for a video that, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, a little bit unsure of. I'm gonna need your feedback. One thing I'm not unsure about though is Obsidian's Pentiment. This game looks awesome and we will talk about it in a moment, but before I get into that, I need to talk about the status of video game previews in our industry because it does tie back into content I could be doing for the channel or not at all. It's literally dependent on your feedback in this video, so just lend me your ears for a moment. Let's talk about video game previews. Prior to 2020, the way video game previews would work is I typically board a plane to California. Many other content creators and press alike would do the same thing. We'd be put up in a nice hotel, an unnecessarily bougie event, just to preview a game because all these companies were trying to do was butter you up so you'd give the game a positive review at the end of the day. More press, more sales, you know how it rolls. What's happened since 2020 with the pandemic and us coming inside more, not being near each other as often, is companies had to get creative with how they offered video game previews. What they started to do was either offer a downloadable build that you would straight up download to your computer, or typically what would happen is you'd play the game via Parsec, streaming the game from a studio PC to yours and taking control that way. As time has gone on, these preview opportunities have whittled down more and more and more. And if you've been paying close attention to my channel, you may recognize that here in the year of 2022, I have not done a single video game preview until today. And the preview opportunities that are being offered for content creators, I think are far worse because what's happening now is they're taking the controller out of your hands, being able to play, feel the game out, understand it properly, get really intimate with the product. That is being taken away from us. And what's happening is what we're talking about here today, which is we get to watch the game. And I don't know if that really sits well with me. Anyone can do that. You could sit there and watch a YouTube video. Anyone could sit there and watch a YouTube video, see the gameplay and go, here's what I feel. The reason I'm doing this is because I did have the opportunity, alongside many others, to communicate with Josh Sawyer and talk about the game, how they got around making this game, and learn more about it on an intimate level that maybe a video couldn't have told you. So I decided if I'm gonna take a flyer on any game, it's gonna be an Obsidian one that I think is flying dangerously under the radar, and I could put some love on it in the meantime if it's a one-time thing. So let me know what you think about the future of game previews here on this channel. Do you feel comfortable with me offering my thoughts on games I see and not play? Because for me, I'm kind of middle of the road on it. I know many of you just value the input, just value the information, and I'm right there with you. I just want to make sure I'm offering to you the proper type of information. So please fire away, positive or negative, it's all welcome. With that, let's talk about Obsidian's Pentiment. So this is a game that I was really excited to see at the Xbox Game Showcase this past June. That was leaked prior to that, but still, it was cool to hear that Obsidian was committing to another brand new idea. Over the years, they've really diversified what they offered. Now Grounded is one of the bigger Xbox exclusives. It's gonna have its full release in September. I'm really looking forward to that. And alongside that, Obsidian's also dropping Pentiment in November. Now, Pentiment is a very different looking game. In fact, it's extremely hard to describe, and that's one of its best boons and also its worst qualities, because that makes it difficult to market, but also entirely unique when you finally get your hands on it, it would seem, because again, didn't get to play it. But I did have an opportunity, alongside many others, to speak with Josh Sawyer, to ask questions, to see what he thought about certain things. And one thing I want to put up front in this video, because I feel like with a lot of the negative press that Xbox first-party studios has been receiving, that maybe they could use something a little bit good, a bit of a pick-me-up, and that Obsidian continues to experiment thanks to Microsoft. One thing that Josh Sawyer did say to me is that it wasn't until Microsoft was just going to acquire Obsidian that Josh thought that they could do this. They felt Game Pass was appropriate for this game and Microsoft would have let them explore with this experiment, and they did just that. Not only that, but when it comes to accessibility options, Microsoft has been fundamental in helping with that process. They said you could disable the fancy fonts within the game so they're legible. There's a glossary for those who don't know too much about the characters or the history in the game, so you could reference those. And Microsoft has a usability group that helped here by giving it to people with actual limitations or disabilities so that, again, it was much more accessible. So Josh kept pouring this one on. I originally wasn't going to mention it because when he first said it, I was like, well, yeah, they're working together. The new thing is like, it wouldn't have been possible without Xbox. But when you keep saying it over and over and over, to me, I started to get the feeling like, okay, this is a lot more genuine and just being honest. Like, yeah, we probably wouldn't have done this without Xbox. He even said when it came to crowdfunding, probably wouldn't have happened, just didn't really believe in that idea. But Microsoft was about that exploration of a brand new idea and let them go crazy with it. And that is awesome. This game started off with a team of 2 people and has scaled up to now 10 plus. Again, Really cool to see an experiment being toyed with by a first-party studio, and I hope this continues with Xbox, just on a side note. But let's talk about the video game itself. So the story of Pentiment is set in the 16th century, as you can probably tell by the art style if you're somewhat tied into your history degrees out there. Me, I always say I have a writing and history brain, and there are others out there that I'm envious of who have a math and science brain. For me, I always connected well with writing and history in school, but when it came to math and science, good luck. I was out of there, man. I was like, can you explain that one more time? Anyway, art style may be reminiscent if you paid attention to your history books in school. It's 16th century inspired. They talked quite a bit about that, how they came down to that with the woodcuts, with the manuscripts. And overall, what I picked up from this was an astute attention to detail on representing a period in time via the art in the video game. They were recommending whole-on books. I mean, Obsidian, I love y'all. You're a bunch of nerds, though, and I say that with all the love in my heart. That's not an insult. Like, they nerded out on this game, and I love that, even down to the font. What they did actually in this game was created a font style. So you'll notice when you watch some gameplay of Pentiment, because the gameplay I saw, you will also be seeing, because it will be the playable demo at Gamescom. Again, not really connecting the dots on why no one could play this game. I'm not trying to sound ungrateful for the opportunity, but y'all know how I feel. Like, we got to put our hands on the game to give the most honest, upfront opinion possible. But anyway, when you take a look at the gameplay, you will see the way that the font comes in and the way it's drawn, the way it's colorized. There is a very detailed scripting process within the game's engine that they created for this title. The scripts were written in very specific ways back then, and Obsidian created what they called their own stroke rendering technique. So you'll see the font fill up in a very specific manner. This is something that I think a lot of history junkies will get a kick out of. They will absolutely love. And Obsidian was connected to multiple people who specialized in history professors, so on and so forth, to help educate, to help write the game and make it accessible. That was one thing that caught me off guard when Josh was talking about this game. When we looked at this originally prior to the reveal of it, when we were talking about the leak, it sounded more and more like a Disco Elysium style game. And that's not to say it isn't, but many people expected something different, you know, role-playing focused. And what Josh said could be concerning for some, but also exciting for others. He defined this as specifically not an RPG at heart, a narrative adventure. There are light RPG elements, his words, not mine, light RPG elements. These are things like you can select your background for your main character, what university you studied in, like you could be an astronomer, and you can use that type of stuff to complete tasks. But you do have a predetermined character backdrop. It's much more defined, but you would effectively make the type of Andreas Malter, if you will. That's the main character in this game. But like you've experienced in an Obsidian game, there are still reactions throughout the main story, and they did confirm that there is a branching narrative, there are multiple endings, but this game seems a lot more focused, if you will. Josh talked a bit about that because we all know Josh Sawyer, the mind behind many great games, but probably his most popular that I see in my community is Fallout New Vegas. Will he go back to AAA development? He said that he would actually do this type of game again, what Pentiment is. By that, he means a more predefined character backdrop and telling that story versus all the other games he worked on where the character was a no-name, a blank slate, and how do you sort of fill that in through the world? So it was very fascinating to hear Josh's thoughts on the future of his career, because I know many of us are a little bit amped hearing like, oh, there might be a New Vegas 2 at Obsidian, God willing, by the way. And if there is, people want Josh Sawyer in on it. That's not to say he's only in on Pentiment. He's working on other things. He's in on Avowed, for example, but this is like his baby right now. He's taking great care of it. So I thought people would be very interested to hear where the focus is with this game. It is not an RPG at heart, even down to the mini games, because this is an accessibility focused game. So what they said is that the mini games that you would experience, like moving pictures on a wall, were specifically made for immersion purposes. These were not designed to challenge you at all. This is different from other narrative adventure games I've played. I'll throw one out there for my Defining Duke fans that I talk about pretty much weekly, although it qualifies more as a visual novel, but it has a lot of puzzle elements and interactable elements. Danganronpa. Danganronpa to me is like the top of the top when it comes to that genre. I absolutely adore it. And what I saw here was a little bit of that energy, like interacting with the environment, putting little pieces of the puzzle together, and it's more so immersive focused, whereas Danganronpa was more challenge focused. So I prefer the more challenge focus. I don't want to just coast on by, but again, it looks like Obsidian here is looking for something that can reach out to a larger audience. And that's kind of strange to say, right? When I look at Pentiment, artistically, it's beautiful, but I don't see a game there that reaches the masses. I see a game that is a great experiment that Microsoft could enable so that a studio culture is very positive and they create even better stuff down the line. And also taking a chance, maybe it does end up being a really big deal. Personally, I can't sit here and say I see that happening as much as I would love for that to be the case, but I'm sure a lot of people prior to Grounded's reveal said the same thing, and here we are. So I could be wrong, but that was their focus. They didn't want to make this challenging. They wanted to provide all the accessibility options and really focus in on bringing an audience to the game. They are talking a lot about Game Pass and how they feel this is a great engine for Pentiment to reach a lot of people. So all in all, this is a game that would not have happened without Microsoft and without Game Pass. And that's fascinating because last we heard, Xbox doesn't make games just for Game Pass or just because of Game Pass. So listen closely, ladies and gentlemen, to the words that are being said. There is exploration within the gameplay. You're going to be exploring 2 different communities, and it's a very, as you'd imagine, dialogue-focused game. This goes over the course of multiple years, so they're saying that the characters that you will meet and interact with will transform over time before your very eyes based off choices you make while interacting with them. But these choices tie into a main story about an artist caught up in a series of murders spanning 25 years, and this is where I could see the game really taking off. I think of games like Final Fantasy VI, which convey the sense of time passing really well. I just played that for the first time this year, and so good even for its time, man. But I love games that convey the passage of time really well. And I feel like this could be Pentiment's defining quality narratively, is seeing how characters transform and respond based off choices that you make. It really does look like a interesting time. I don't want to say a good time or a fascinating time. It looks like interesting because to me, there's nothing quite like Pentiment. You know, you've seen the narrative adventure games, you've seen the choice-driven games, but I can't say for certain we've really seen this art style before. And I can't say for certain we've seen all these elements really come together in the way that Pentiment is displaying them. Plus, let's be real, y'all. Obsidian is our team. We love Obsidian here. I don't care what console you root for whatever reason, Obsidian is everyone's team. They're making a really cool game here. I think we should definitely be behind it because it's nice to see big companies experiment. Like I talked about in my Saints Row review, AAA gaming is really at the bottom of the barrel with new and inventive ideas, barring Elden Ring. It's really up to the indies, the AA's, but now we're seeing AAA games can come in and actually experiment and make a smaller game, have some success like Grounded, which can enable future experiments. That is awesome, so I'm all about what Pentiment's doing, even if I was admittedly a little disheartened to hear it is a narrative-focused adventure. But what I saw and what I was told by Josh Sawyer, I did like, and it made me more excited to give it a shot, which ultimately I think is the goal. But what I will say I liked about this process, because I know I spoke about the whole process at the beginning, is this didn't feel like a get hype process. It was like, here's the stream, tune in, got any questions while he's talking, fire away, and that was really it. It was very bang, bang, bang. After almost an hour, it was done, and that was it. So yeah, got to see a little bit of Pentiment, liked what I saw. More so wanted to talk about what I heard because I figured that would be information many weren't privy to. But I am definitely looking forward to putting my hands on this game in November. One of the few games that looks like it's nice and locked in for this fall release, because the team at Obsidian, like, they went to Gamescom, right? So like they're going out doing the press tour, so that looks like it's pretty firmly locked in, so you can look forward to this one safely, I would imagine. I certainly am. So what do you think of course, this style video, just to remind you all who waited till the end patiently? Do you want to see more of these previews even if I don't lay my hands on the game? Even so, opportunities aren't really pouring through the door, but I just want to make sure that whole process is transparent. And of course, what do you think about Pentiment and all I had to share about the game? I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts in the comments down below, so please do fire away. With that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.